will go live in 3, 2, 1.
Good morning. Please silence all electronic devices for the duration of the meeting. Welcome to the May 19, 2025 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. I'm Councilmember Gil Schussler, Chair of the Finance and Audit Committee. The meeting format will be hybrid. We'll take a roll call, but the quorum should be physically present at the HART Administrative Offices, 1201 East 7th Avenue, Florida Conference Room, and the rest of the board members are participating via communication media technology. HART COO, Mr. Sean McCarthy, is attending on behalf of the HART CEO, who is attending an out-of-state conference. Please look at your screens of your devices. An image of the flag is displayed. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Committee Member Hartfield.
Present.
Committee Member King.
Present.
Committee Member Knight. Committee Chair Schussler.
Here.
Committee Member Williams. Here. You do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Okay, public comment is next. Next agenda item is public comment. There's no one scheduled to speak. Is there anyone present for the public comment this morning? Appearing to be none. Approval of the minutes. Next is in the packet are the minutes for the April 21st, 2025 Finance and Audit Committee meeting. If everybody's had a chance to look at it, is there a motion to approve the minutes? Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you very much. Committee action items with presentations. Next on the agenda are two committee action items with presentations for review by the committee for recommendations on approval to the full board of directors. Item 4A is recommended the board of directors approve the proposed program of projects, POP, and authorize the chief executive officer to apply for and accept all fiscal year 2025 federal transit administrative funding. Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized to provide an overview of this item.
Thank you, Chairman Schussler. Good morning, and good morning to members of the committee and folks who are watching virtually. HART receives federal funding through the Federal Transit Administration, which is used for operating expenses and capital projects. Annually, the HART Board of Directors authorizes the CEO to execute the FTA applications and receive funding. Additionally, the FTA Section 5307 grants program have special requirements relating to identifying the specific list of projects known as the Program of Projects and public participation. I would like to invite Ms. Melanie Williams, Director of Budget and Grants, to the podium to walk us through the FTA requirements for development and approval of the Program of Projects. Ms. Williams.
Ms. Williams, you're recognized. It's still weird. It's still weird. Sorry, it's still strange.
Good morning, Chair Schussler, members of the Finance and Audit Committee, and Mr. McCarthy. My name is Melanie Williams, Director of Budgets and Grants. Today I represent two presentations related to the development of the FY26 budget. Each year we receive FTA Section 5307 grant, and FTA requires us to develop a program of projects, which is a list of projects funded by the grant. This presentation and action item for the FY25 proposed Program of Projects, POP. The presentation overview includes the FY26 budget calendar, the apportionment of Section 5307 federal funds, the proposed project of projects, public outreach, other federal funding, and board resolution. This is the budget calendar. Today, May 19th, there will be two presentations, the FTA Section 5307 Program of Projects and then the FY '26 proposed operating budget, capital plan, and capital budget. FTA requires a public hearing on the Section 5307 Programs of Project, and that hearing is scheduled for May 29th. On June 2nd, we will present these two presentations I am presenting today to the board for board action. We have two presentations in August. One, August 4th, to the board, where we give an updated presentation focusing on the service plan. And then another presentation on August 18th. We will present the budget presentation to the Finance and Audit Committee, focusing on the capital plan and capital budget in detail. Then finally, in September, we will have two required public hearings. September 8th, the first public hearing, the board adopts tentative millage rate and tentative budget. And then September 22nd, 2025, the second and final public hearing, the board adopts the final millage rate and final budget. Section 5307 funding is awarded to the Tampa-St. Petersburg urbanized area each year. For FY 2025, the total federal appropriation for the urbanized area is split between Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority, PSTA, Hillsborough Transit Authority, HART, and Pasco County Public Transportation, PCPT. HART received $23,506,841, which is 41.9% of the total amount of $56,101,345. Section 5307 grant is the largest formula grant received from FTA. To receive the grant, FTA requires us to develop a list of projects funded from this grant. Here is a list of projects. We have the total operating projects totaling $19,666,052, and then we have a list of capital projects totaling $3,840,789. with a grand total of $23,506,841. FTA also requires public participation in the development of the POP. This includes public outreach and public hearing to give the public an opportunity to provide comments and feedback. Below is a list of communication methods to the public. In addition to the 5307 grant, we also received Section 5337 State of Good Repair and Section 5339 Bus Facility Formula. The total of Section 5337 for FY '25 is $1,153,993. Section 5339 total is $1,718,163, totaling for these two programs $2,872,156. This brings us to the committee action item, where we recommend the HART Board of Directors to approve the proposed program of projects, POP, and authorize the Chief Executive Officer to apply for and accept all FY 2025 Federal Transit Administration funding. And this concludes this presentation.
Thank you very much. Do any members have any questions or comments? Mr. Hartfield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've asked this question in the past, and I wanted just to make sure I'm clear. Hillsborough County is the third largest county in the state. Pinellas is either fifth or seventh. It kind of wavers in there. Why do we receive less funding from the FTA for HART as opposed to PSTA? Can anyone help me understand that a little bit better?
Yes, I can. So the calculation is based on many factors in NTD reporting, including the revenue miles, the ridership, and other data included in there. So one increase, let me go back to this here. You notice the increase, if we usually be right at the same amount as PSTA. This year, they increased because they had a new BRT, the Sunrunner, so they have increased at 45.05%. So it has a lot of factors, including what's included in the ridership, the miles, and the hours to do the calculation between the three.
And the base
transit sources.
funding also, correct? Is base funding calculated in that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So how is base funding calculated into that? I don't mean to put you on the spot, I'm just curious, I want to know.
So a PSTA is the one that actually calculates the split. They use the NTD reporting from the base funding with what is reported in the NTD, and it's based on the density area of the population. It goes in the population, the ridership, the density of the area, and so Hillsborough County is a wider and a bigger county, so their density population is different than the Pinellas County. So it's based on quite a bit of factors.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Ms. Williams, yes?
Thank you.
You're recognized.
Thanks, Melanie. I think Mr. Hartfield has a point about this that we discuss every year around this time, and I think ultimately is the number of people. There's the population status in there. What is the original?
The actual population?
Yes.
I don't have that information as for the population of Hillsborough County and Pinellas, but I would be happy to give that to you.
Okay, thank you. I just want us to get back to the point that can we make this change from a formula standpoint? Last year they said we could not, and is that something we're pursuing this year?
Change of as far as the amount?
The formula
The formula?
required to generate the net outcome.
I don't think that it's the formula is set by different standards of FTA. I can get back with you, but not for sure. I can get back with you as far as changing the formula, but that's something that's set by FTA with the different requirements that is included in the calculation. But I can get back with you to confirm that.
Okay, thank you.
We don't set the formula on that. the feds set the formula on that. And as Ms. Williams had indicated, there's, at least 5 or 6 different factors, I think, that go into the calculation. We hit this brick wall every year. This year it's a little bit worse because of their BRT. The BRT, I think you said
The Sunrunner, yes.
Sunrunner went into effect, and they have more tourists than we do at that point, during the summer and so forth. So it does impact us and affect us. Ms. Kirk, do you have anything you can add?
I do, Director Schistler, if you allow me to speak.
Please.
Okay, and Melanie has basically answered the question. I'll give a little more information. First of all, the governor dictates who calculates the split. And years ago, PSTA was designated to calculate the split. There is a formula. We'll be more than happy to give you the factors that play into that formula. Once they calculate the split, they do send it to the other 2 transit systems, and each CEO has to agree with the split. So we have reviewed it before they send out the split letters. So we have concurred with the split. We've had their CEO come to this board and give a presentation for those who are on the board on how the split is calculated. But the main factor that takes PSTA over HART is the population density. That's the main one. But it is the National Transit Database information that is also used in terms of, in terms of ridership and other factors. But we will give the board a briefing, if you will. We can either do another presentation, or we can have our CEO send information on the split. But this is a question that comes up every year when we show you the split.
Okay. Any other questions? Yeah, Mr. Hartfield.
Mr. Chair, if it's appropriate, I'd love to have a presentation on it and understand from, I guess, a strategic standpoint if this is something that's a priority for us in terms of being better represented as it relates to this split.
Okay. Ms. Williams, Ms. Kirk, you can have a presentation for the board. I'm sure this question will come up because it used to be pretty equal. Now it's a little bit of a bigger gap between the two entities. So if we could have a presentation or a sub-presentation for the board meeting as to what the actual calculation is and how it's developed.
Absolutely. I'll include in the next presentation a slide with a summary of the calculation.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Williams.
Thank you so much. Are we comfortable with the presentation? So going over the presentation and how we got these numbers is one ask. The second is, are we doing anything to try to maximize our opportunity to get more dollars, considering the amount of people we're covering in respect to PTSA?
What are we doing to change these numbers into the future? Any comment on that?
As far as the 5307, the
Yes.
split,
Yes.
so as Ms. Kirk stated before, they do, PSTA does the calculation, they send it to us, we review it, and then it gets approved by each of the the three transit agencies. As far as what we're doing to about the split, as stated before, for the next presentation, I bring how the split is calculated, and then from there we can, have what information is included in that calculation, and then we can go from there. But as far as what we're doing, we're reviewing it, making sure that it's reasonable, and going over that calculation, making sure it's accurate.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
So I think the population density, that I don't think is a factor that's within our control, but I think the COA to a certain degree speaks about this in terms of latent demand and try to, get ridership, that's out there that we could be serving if we looked at things a little bit differently. So I think ridership, total miles, things of that nature are things that we could, theoretically improve. But as we've discussed, I think ad nauseum, that's going to take, more head count, more vehicles, things of that nature. But we are looking at it in that context, and that would certainly be a positive byproduct of the COA if we decided to adopt some of the recommendations that are in there relative to routes.
I think to your point, Ms. Williams, I believe, and what Mr. McCarthy said, I believe when I speak about base funding, in order to the factors that go into this calculation, density, nothing we can do about that, but the ridership and the revenue miles all comes back to the investment that we make in going forward. And the COA will have a lot to do with influencing that, provided we come up with cash in order to make that happen. So when I say base funding, a lot of this is going to be impacted on any success that we have in increasing our revenues, the underlying revenues in operating the system in itself. So, okay, if you could.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr.
One final question. Melanie, if you can forecast what, if possible, we were able to develop an organized MPO, how would these numbers be impacted? So if we had an MPO for Pinellas, Pasco, and Hillsborough, a regional MPO, how would these numbers be impacted?
It goes back to as those factors, the ridership, the revenue miles, and the population. So if we have a MPO that's regional, that would take into those considerations, and if we have transit that crosses between regions, that would, within that county, that would, and I think Ms. Kirk had her hand up. She wanted to comment on that.
Ms. Kirk?
Director Sisler, if I can.
Please.
Okay, just so I can understand the question, because we have an MPO. The TPO is the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So we have a regional MPO. In Hillsborough County, they just call it the TPO. So I'm trying to understand the question, if we had a regional. So
There's a move afoot to combine Pinellas, Pasco, and Tampa into one regional MPO or TPO.
Okay, so you're looking at the TPO to make those changes in the future, is that what I'm
No,
understanding?
the question is, there's a move afoot to combine the three individual MPOs into one big MPO. And how, and I think the question is, well, how will that impact it going forward if that occurs, if and when that occurs?
Okay, the change in any change in the MPO, we know that the MPO is there, or the TPO is there for planning of projects. So this would not impact the 5307 funding. And I also want to remind the board that this 5307 funding that we're talking about today is historical. So we can't change the history of our ridership and the factors that we talked about. But as Mr. McCarthy mentioned, we can look at those factors and see how we can improve as an agency so we can weigh in more and get more percentage. But we probably cannot change this percent because this is historical data. This has already happened.
But going forward, there's the opportunity.
That's correct.
Okay. I do have a question. It goes back to your budget schedule. And I meant to ask this the other day when we were talking. City of Temple Terrace, we have to have our tentative millage rate in by July 1.
Yes.
How come we don't have to for HART?
That's in the budget presentation, repeat the question, Chair Schisler?
Under the schedule, it indicated that the tentative millage rate would be adopted as September 8th.
Yes.
I think, do we have to have it into the appraiser's office by September?
July 1st. July 1st,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Yes, and a more detailed budget schedule is in the second
Okay,
presentation,
all right,
yes.
Sorry, didn't mean to confuse that. Okay, cool, thank you. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to, unless there's any other questions, to move this item onto the full board for approval at the July 2nd meeting. Do you have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move this forward, but in addition, also include the steps that we need to take going forward, or just an overview or some actions we're taking going forward to ever make a change in this historical data.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second on the floor. Mr. King, you got any questions? I apologize.
No, sir, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, I can't see any hands raised. You're in a shadow, so I can't tell. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comment? Appearing to be none. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Very good, thank you. Motion passes. And you'll come back with some type of a presentation for the board with the, for the calculation?
Yes.
And what factors
The
can
factors.
influence it going forward? Okay, good,
Absolutely,
thank
yes.
you. Okay, next item is 4B, to recommend to the HART Board of Directors approve the fiscal year 26 proposed budget and authorize the CEO to submit the approved budget to the Hillsborough County, City of Tampa, and the City of Temple Terrace. Just as a point of clarification, the reason for this step is so that it can be, we're not approving the budget, but moving it forward to the board, so that they can move it on to these individual cities so that, and members, so that they can approve their portion of it. Because it's got to go back to the board for as having been accepted by the members. Mr. McCarthy, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. HART is required to submit a proposed budget to the governing legislative bodies of each member of the authority on or before July 1st, 2025. The proposed budget was developed, and HART Director of Budget and Grants, Melanie Williams, will present the proposed budget today. Ms. Williams, you are recognized.
All right, good morning again.
Good morning.
Okay, this is the presentation for the discussion of the FY26 proposed operating budget, proposed capital budget, and 5-year capital plan. This proposed budget, which is considered our base budget, is subject to change based on feedback from this committee and from the board. There will be budget deliberations over the next several months, and then the final budget will be presented to the board for approval in a public hearing, tentative scheduled for September 22nd, 2025. This is the agenda for today's discussion. FY26 budget development calendar, budget legislation from HART Charter, the budget assumptions for revenue, the projected service, budget assumptions for expenses, proposed operating budget. Then we have the 5-year capital plan for summary and detail, the proposed FY '26 capital budget summary in detail, fund reserves, and then the action item. This slide summarizes the committee and board meetings scheduled for consideration of the FY '26 operating and capital budget. On June 2nd, we will ask the board to approve the Section 5307 program of projects and to approve the FY '26 operating budget, capital plan, and capital budget. If necessary, on June 16th, we will ask the Finance and Audit Committee to consider proposed amendments to the FY '25 operating and capital budget. In July, the charter requires the public hearing for any budget amendments. If necessary, on July 10th, we will conduct the public hearing on the FY '25 proposed amended budget. Also, on July 21st, the board action on the proposed amended FY '25 operating and capital budget. And then on July 21st, the board action on proposed millage rate, rollback rate, and date of public hearing. We have two presentations in August, one on August 4th to the board, where we give an updated budget presentation focusing on the service plan. And then on August 18th, we will present the budget presentation to the Finance and Audit Committee, focusing on the capital budget and capital plan in detail. Then finally, in September, we will have two required public hearings. On September 8th, the first public hearing, where the board adopts the tentative millage rate and tentative budget. And then September 22nd, the second and final public hearing, the board adopts the final millage rate and final budget. The next three slides are inserts from the HART's charter. This slide is section one, budget preparation. And this states that the proposed operating and capital budget should be submitted to the Board of Directors on or before June 15th of each year. Next is the section 4, member approval. HART requires to submit an approved proposed budget to the members of HART, which includes Hillsborough County, the City of Tampa, and the City of Temple Terrace on or before July 1st of each year. Next is Section 5, budget hearing, and HART is required to present the proposed budget to the board for approval in a public hearing. The next few slides, I will discuss the budget assumptions for revenue. We have the Avalon taxes at the Avalon tax revenue is based on the proposed millage rate of 0.5 mils. It is estimated that $85,897,138 of revenue. By statute, HART can only budget at 95% of Avalon proceeds. Therefore, the budget assumption is $81,602,281. This represents a $3.8 million or a 5% increase over FY '25. There are no funds budgeted to be transferred to capital in FY '26. We have the federal operating grants at $21,816,708. The state operating grants, $7,963,611. The fair pass revenue at $9,720,864. Local contributions, $2,491,250. Advertising income at $1,500,000. Other income at $251,823. And then we have the Tampa Historic Streetcar estimated at $2,484,624. Interest income at $1,466,320. There are no funds budgeted to be transferred to the operating reserves in FY '26. Fund balance transfer to capital, estimated $4,075,850, and this amount is used to fund capital projects or the local match for those capital projects. This is the FY26 proposed service for all the modes. The total revenue miles for all modes is 10,208,934. We have the revenue hours at 800,100, and the total ridership 13,262,124. The next few slides, I will discuss the budget assumptions for the expenses. The first one is the salaries and wages at $58,353,553. We have the fringe benefits at $14,785,081. And then the description, what's included in these categories are included. We have the healthcare at $14,004,853. Operational contract services at $12,743,504. Parts and supplies, $6,790,035. We have the fuel at $4,770,857, and then we have the fuel cost projection below. Administrative other, $3,520,514. Administrative contract services at $2,111,608. Legal services, $595,750. Utilities, $1,376,008. Marketing and printing, $527,737, and then taxes and fees at $605,034. The next two slides summarize the operating budget and includes the plan for FY27 and FY28. This is a balanced budget. The total revenues is $125,221,631. Again, this is a balanced budget. So the operating expenses for FY26, $125,221,631. The HART board policy requires a minimum of a 90-day reserve of operating expenditures. So the FY26 proposed operating budget is $125,221,631, and that 90-day reserve amount is $30,876,567. So we have a projected balance of in October 1st of $39,439,546. So this is a schedule of all the reserves. Currently, we have a total of $48,719,955. This slide shows the projection of 10/1/2025 and then the projection at the end of FY26. So in this slide, we have two self-insurance reserves, one for risk and one for medical benefits. Then we have the capital match reserve and then the FTA liability reserve. Next is the proposed 5-year capital plan, which totals $326,974,611. The first year of the capital plan is the FY26 capital budget. The total plan for FY '26, which is the capital budget, is $74,463,155. For FY 2027, the capital plan is $66,699,929. FY 2028, the total, $71,459,521. FY 2029, $67,017,800. In FY 2030, $47,134,206, with the total of the 5-year capital plan, again, at $326,974,611. The next several slides list the details of the capital plan. So we have the vehicles and maintenance total at $113,630,380. We have the total for facilities and construction at $145,972,268. Technology total, $10,070,262. Then we have the bus stops and shelters total at $24,882,889. We have the bus rapid transit at $30 million. Planning and studies total at $500,000. And then safety and security total at $1,918,812, totaling that $326,974,611. As stated, the first year of the 5-year capital plan is the capital budget. This slide summarizes the FY '26 capital budget with the revenue sources and then the project categories. So for the revenue sources, we have the discretionary grants at $30,093,025. These discretionary grants are grants that we must apply and compete to receive the funds. Then we have the capital reserves at $2,787,054. And then we have the Florida Department of Transportation at $2,924,503. And the next are the all federal grants, the community project funding, $1,602,608. We have the section 5339, the bus and bus facilities at $3,073,297. We have the 5337, the state of good repair, $1,257,200. We have the section 2005 pilot TOD land use planning study at $300,000. And then we have the Federal Highway Administration funding at $21,890,759. And then last, we have the 5307 at $10,534,709, with a total of $74,463,155. It is a balanced budget, so the total capital projects totals at $74,463,155. Next is the FY '26 capital budget in detail. So for FY '26, for vehicles and maintenance, $33,424,218. For FY '26 capital budget, facilities and construction, $25,263,027. Technology total, $6,262,000. Then we have the bus stops and shelters total at $8,082,889. Planning and studies, $500,000. And then the safety and security total at $1,192,759. That brings the total capital budget at $74,463,155. So this brings us to the committee action item for approval of the FY 2026 proposed budget and authorization for the Chief Executive Officer to submit the approved proposed budget to the City of Tampa, Florida, the County of Hillsborough, Florida, and the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, and advance these items to the full HART Board of Directors on June 2nd, 2025 regular board meeting. And this concludes the presentations, questions and comments.
Okay. All right. Where do you want to start? Okay. All right. What's the increase? What was the increase in ad valorem value for the county? Do you know off the top of your head?
No, they have not came out with that. I know they had a budget worksheet at about 6.5% increase, but they have not came out with that total yet.
Okay.
July 1st.
July 1st, okay, so we're guesstimating at 5%.
With yes, we're trying to be conservative at 5% with everything, with the unknown, so we have estimated at being conservative at 5%.
Okay. Keep in mind that this is going to be macinated over the next several times over the next couple of months, but we need a starting point. So, we're projecting a 5% increase in property values. Ad valorem increases due to the property value reduction, because it was what, 8%? It was almost 8% this year.
It was 6.6%.
Okay, 6.6% for FY '25, so we're ratcheting it down a little bit. Because I know even for the City Temple Terrace, we're anticipating a reduction in the increase of the property. So it's still going up, but not up at the rate that it was going. Okay. Couple other questions. Health coverage. How much are we anticipating an increase year over year?
We increased, from FY '26, we did 14% increase.
14%, okay.
As of right now, yes.
What were we this year, do you know?
For from FY '24 to FY '25, we budgeted 14% also.
How much, what are we actual?
The actual right now is, it's running, let's go back to here. We're projected right at that total 14%, 13,182,746. So right, pretty much at budget.
When will our renewals come in?
I'm not for sure about how the renewals. I will get back with you. Yes, I don't know that.
Because I'm looking for questions for the board that the board might ask. So we know if we know what it is, we have that number in our pocket before we can answer that. We can answer that question because ours doesn't come in until October. So for the school or for the city, so it's a tough projection. Salaries and wages, CAB increases or CBA increases. Do we know that's per contract? Do we have any that haven't been finalized yet, like Teamsters or anybody or?
That is not included in the budget. We have not, what's included in the budget for the salaries and wages is the ATU
Okay.
agreement, yes.
When does the Teamsters negotiations occur? Or?
Yeah, so I just give you a brief update
Sure.
on that. So we are at impasse with the Teamsters. We are in the process of collaborating with a special magistrate who will hear each side's argument, at which point they will write a report. The report is not binding. It's opinion, I guess, more than anything. And shortly thereafter, both sides will come before the full board, make their cases, and the full board will be expected to render a decision. And the timeline for that, conservatively speaking, best case scenario, August, more than likely September.
Okay. We have nothing in this budget for that at this point, or is it?
What teams are no?
Okay, all right. What about non-bargaining employees?
Is it budget, no increase?
No increase for this year coming up. Okay, cool. Okay. Fare box recoveries, it appears to be 7.8%-ish. We're going to hold with that.
For revenue, I'm just gonna go back to.
7.76.
Oh, you talking about revenue, let me
Keep
go
going.
back here. Okay, so you talking about the fair revenue?
Yes.
Yes, that's based on the projected ridership and average fare.
Okay, now how are we calculating the city of Tampa's contribution to Route 1 in that?
It is included in there. So for the city of Tampa, for the Route 1, it's for this year, which is 3/4 of it in FY '25, and then the first quarter in FY '26, which we have. I'm gonna try to take you to the slide of the overview. Where is it? So it is calculated in there. It is taken into account of the city of Tampa.
Well, but is it, okay, it's put under the city of Tampa, or is it?
It's included in the local contributions.
Local contributions?
Yes.
Okay, but not in the fare box recovery?
No.
Okay, because the fare box recovery for this year budgeted projection is 7.6.
Yes, and that reflects the city of Tampa for Route 1. So as you see, for local contributions, the projection is higher.
Right. Well, I just see the fare box recovery, the local contributions totals like 10.9 million. And the proposed budget is a little over 12 million. So that's covered in, so the city Tampa contributions listed. Do we projecting an increase in fare box, or?
For the city of Tampa, it's included in the local contribution for the
Okay.
Route 1 free
Okay.
fares.
Okay,
So the fare revenues is based on the ridership and the
Okay.
average fare.
okay, Flamingo will be wrapped up in all
Yes.
that's mushed in.
Yes,
Okay, cool,
yes,
all right, that's
yes.
good, that's
Mhm.
good. And then streetcar for Tampa, the streetcar numbers, the Tampa Historic Streetcar, 2.484.
Yes, so that's based on what we have budgeted, and I know that in the next couple of weeks, we will be preparing the THS budget, so it is an estimate. So that 2.4 is based on what we budgeted for FY '25, the
Right.
3.1, and then with the assumption of the CRAs for that 700,000.
Okay, so what are we hoping happens? Because I haven't talked to on that committee yet what we're gonna do.
We'll just have budget discussions in the next couple of weeks with THS to prepare the budget, so it has not been any discussions as
Okay,
far as
so-
FY
So
'26.
Tampa pulls the plug on it, what happens?
Yes.
What'll happen?
So right now, if the CRAs for the 700,000, it would be budgeted at the 3.1. But as I stated before, that we'll be preparing the THS and have discussions on preparing the THS budget.
Okay, so if the city of Tampa says no, what'll happen?
I'll take this.
Okay, I don't mean,
Right, so,
I mean, that's a
this
worst case
is,
scenario.
I certainly don't want to speak for Scott, but, we are prepared to reinstitute fares, and we are prepared to cut service.
Okay, that was my question, that
Okay.
was the next
Yeah.
step, what'll happen? Okay, so the fares will have to go back in, and what were the fares for that? Do we know? I don't remember.
Right? $2.50.
Okay, that'll put a hurt on that.
Good morning, Brian Allen, Director of Streetcar Operations.
Yes, sir,
The fares were $2.50 per ride or $5 for the day,
okay,
but they'd have to match our bus, the fixed route
Right.
fares right now, so.
okay, all right, cool. And then, I can't read my own writing. Okay, capital plan, if we may. The heavy maintenance facility is embedded in facilities and construction, obviously. Are we covered at the 19,890 for what we anticipate needing to be done during that year? Or are we just pushing too much of it out to the future?
The 19.8 for the HM facility is funded, meaning that with federal funding.
But where are we in the plan for that? Or the projection of the actual construction? Are we, I don't know how to ask the question. The items that we anticipate happening in 2026 cover the 19.8, 19.9, or are we pushing stuff out to the future that we need to get done now? And I see somebody back there. I can't tell who it is. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Kirk, I apologize. I keep forgetting to look at the screen.
Yeah, thank you, Director Sister, but I see that someone from PMO, Linda Crestitini, has
Okay.
come to our podium, so she'll answer that question. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank
Sure.
you.
Good morning, Linda Crescentini. I'm the Director of the Project Management Office.
Right.
And yes, so currently on the street, we have the design for the fueling lane facility.
Okay.
That's being through procurement today. And then once that's ready, we'll go through the design, and then this funding will help with the construction of the service lane. And the service lane is to take care of realignment of the bus wash, plus a facility that will have a second floor, which will have EOC, emergency, and OCC for the Operations Service Center.
Okay, good, because I view this meeting as a chance to dress rehearsal for the board meeting, so that you guys can get your dog and pony
Right.
show. I'll ask any questions that I can think of so that you can be prepared for the second, so that we don't have any missteps, or you can get your act, not together, you are together, but be ready for it for the board meeting.
Absolutely, and that's what we always consider phase one. So
Right.
we have phase one, the service lane, and phase two is the heavy maintenance facility.
Now, the big push is at 28. What's planned for that?
And for the heavy maintenance facility?
Yes, 28, 29.
Yes, so like we had talked about, phase one, the next phase would go into the design for the heavy maintenance, the
Okay.
combination of the heavy maintenance and the preventive maintenance building.
Okay,
The design would be the next year, and then the years following that would be actually the construction. That design's gonna take us between 18 months and 2 years to complete.
cool.
And then the heavy lift is the construction of the building.
Perfect answer. Okay, good. And I think that's all, so I'll shut up. That's all I had for this point. Ms. Williams, yes,
Thank you,
ma'am.
Chair. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was my understanding we already had a plan for heavy maintenance, so am I missing something there? Are we starting fresh, or what is the gap?
Director Fishler?
Yes, ma'am. I see your
If I can
hand.
just-
Ms. Kirk has her hand up. Yes, ma'am.
If I can just comment on the heavy maintenance facility.
Sure.
And I just want to remind the committee that we're really in a situation that we're paying as we go. In an ideal situation, we would have that $140 million available, and then we would build a building. In our situation, you see it spread out because we have to pay for things as we get money. This facility is not fully funded, and so every year we have to apply for discretionary grants to try to get money to pay for the building. So you may see creepage on that number, because anyone in construction on the board knows that if you don't have a contract for a facility, it can increase as time goes on. So that's why you see it, spread out, because the capital plan basically says how much money we plan to obligate, not necessarily spend in that particular year. So you would really want to see the $140 million obligated in 1 year, and then you pay for it as you go. But in our situation, and this gets to that whole discussion about more funding for HART, we don't have the money to build the building, and we have to get it as we go. And that's why you see it spread out. This is not a spending plan. This is an appropriation plan. Contracts that we expect to bring to the board, because we just don't have the money to bring the entire contract to the board at one time.
Okay, I would suggest that we make that, verbalize that as we go through with the iteration before the board, so that everybody's fully aware where we stand and what we're doing with that. So thank you.
Right, and I also, if I can, Director Schisler, I asked Melanie to go back one slide.
Sure.
Because we have that with the heavy maintenance facility, and we have it with the buses. You see that we need buses every year. The 5-year plan has $98,232,574. Right now, we have $0 for buses. So every year, and that's why she said that you saw that the discretionary money in the capital budget is $30 million. That's money we don't have. As Melanie said, that's money we have to apply for. So we are dependent right now on the federal government to award us money so we can buy buses. Last year, we asked for money to buy buses and we got no money. That's why we brought you a resolution last month to the board for 8 buses. And I'm asking Mr. McCarthy, correct me if I'm wrong, 8 buses, because normally we want to purchase, is it 16 buses, Mr. McCarthy, a year?
Yes, ma'am, 16 per year, and the purchase last week was for 8, correct?
It was for 8. We didn't buy any buses last year.
Right.
And so we haven't had any money for buses. So we're dependent on the federal government or someone else to give us money for buses, or else we cannot purchase any of the buses that you see in this capital plan. And when you can't purchase buses, then you know the pressure that puts on your maintenance dollars and your ability to keep the buses rolling, so to speak. And it also curtails any effort to increase service because you just don't have the buses. So the heavy maintenance facility and the bus purchases, we have to find money for those purchases to make it happen over the next 5 years.
The 26 mil, 26.3, and that I've listed up there, how many buses is that for, do you know?
We know a bus is over $800,000, so
30-ish.
30,
Yeah.
roughly, okay, 30 buses, okay. And how will that keep us as far as replenishing buses that are dead and dying?
It'll get us back in some conformance with our fleet plan, which we have not been conforming to the last few years due to the lack of
So
money.
you said about 30 buses?
Correct.
Okay, cool, all right, good. All right, that was, I didn't write that question down, I had that on the sheet, so I'm glad somebody brought that up. Yes, Ms. Williams, you still have the floor, I think. You still have a question. You do. Mr. Hartfield, you got any questions, comments?
So there are a couple things that really stand out to me as it relates to our proposed budget here. But I think the best way to ask it is to ask Mr. McCarthy and Ms. Kirk, what in this proposal gives you pause? What gives you the greatest concern as it relates to right now in this 5-year strategic plan, as it relates to our overall financial plan and stability as well as operations? What gives you the greatest concern or the greatest pause based on what we see here?
I'll speak first, and then Ms. Kirk can certainly speak, but I think the lack of predictability as it relates without a dedicated revenue source, as Ms. Kirk alluded to, a lot of this is discretionary. So there's really, we plan, in the theoretical, but the planning is based on a host of factors that aren't necessarily within our control, which is why I think, as Chairman Schisler has championed, this millage discussion is so critically important to us.
Ms. Kirk, you have anything you'd like to add to that?
Yes, and Mr. McCarthy has basically stated, basically an answer. I'll just say, I'll add just the fight that we have to balance our needs between operating and capital, understanding that we have limited money. So we have great capital needs, but we also have great operating needs. You see the budget is $125 million. I think it was 118 million, if you can go to the budget slide, for operating the overall budget, and understanding that, as Mr. McCarthy stated, we're at an impasse with one of the unions. And so the CEO has already instructed us that after this presentation, that we have to look for efficiencies and cut some of the expenses. The other thing I just want to mention is you notice that we are not using any of the operating reserve, and that was intentional not to use reserves to balance this budget at all, because we don't know what the future holds in terms of federal funding and just general expenses. When you talk about the millage, if you go back in the millage, our increase in 2023 was 14.8%. 2024 was 11.5. Melanie has already mentioned that last year was 6.6, and we're expecting that it may even come down. So the 5%, we're saying we're budgeted conservatively, but it may come in at that because we know that you had hurricanes and you had other factors that may affect the the market in terms of housing. So just the ability to continue operating with a balanced budget, because we know once we have to dig into reserves, we don't want to, because we do not want to get on that financial cliff. And for the board members that have been here for a number of years, you know that several years ago we were on a financial cliff, and people were questioning our ability to continue operations. So just that struggle to continue with the strong operations, and the struggle to buy buses, build a facility, and complete other capital projects. So that's what gives me pause, just that struggle that we're in to do both things, operate the system and improve our capital items.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. Thank you, Mr. McCarthy.
Could we put a chart together for the board meeting, if maybe not in the regular, in the formal presentation, at least have one available that shows the change in the ad valorem value? I think we had it a couple of years ago. But how hard would that be to put together for the historical, maybe last?
It's not hard. Director Schisler, it's not hard at all. That's the chart that we give you when we bring to you the the rollback rate and the ad valorem. So we would do that in a couple of months, but we have the slide from last year. We'll just update it with our projection. We could send you that.
Yeah, I would. I have it ready for the board meeting also.
Okay.
It'll help. I think it'll help to magnify the importance and the criticality of the property values going forward. Okay.
But in Director Schisler, if I can, I will mention that the 6.6 for last year was the lowest in our chart. Our chart that we have goes back to 2016,
Yeah.
and we were increasing at 7.6, 7.6, 8.8, 9.9.
Yeah.
So the value increases are now dwindling, and we'll provide that chart to you.
Okay. Mr. King, do you have any questions or comments?
Just, thank you, Chair. Just one brief question, and I would direct it to whoever feels like they would want to try and answer it. In the short term, is there anything that that you feel we as a board can do to improve the sustainability of the budget going forward, with particular emphasis on capital improvements?
Just your continued advocacy, to continue to let, your peers in both the legislature and the business community understand, where we currently find ourselves and what that looks like, short, medium, and long term, and that this problem is not going to go away without some affirmative action to help.
Okay, let me ask one further question. How short are we from being able to meet our ongoing capital improvement needs?
That I do not have an answer to.
I think Ms. Kirk just answered that.
Yeah, if I can, Mr. Director Schisler and Mr. Keene, if I can. Melanie, would you bring up the capital budget slide, please?
The plan or the budget? Is the budget?
The capital budget. Okay, we'll start right there. Right now, and just so that the board members know, committee members know, we have a capital projects working group, and that's a group of, cross-section of staff that comes together and develops our list of our needs. So based on this year, you see that we are projecting, and the group had asked us to consider $71,396,221 in capital projects. You can see from the revenue side, we're short that first number, which is $32,688,248. So that's the number that is a plug number. So we have capital projects that we want to complete that we don't have funding for, and it's listed as discretionary to say if we get grants for it, then we will do it. But last year we got no grants except for the capital, except for the heavy maintenance facility. So like I mentioned before, we didn't get any bus money, and so we're short this year by $32,688,248.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, I must have missed that point when you went through it the first time. Thank you.
You're welcome.
This, in my mind, this underscores the criticality of needing the increase in the ad valorem funding through the charter review. This is just a classic example of why we really got to do this. We got to get it passed. Mr. Hartfield, yes, sir.
Counselor, Chair Schisler, I'm sorry, my mind is kind of trying to put these numbers together in terms of where we are and grappling with financial exigency. What role should our lobbyists be playing in terms of advocating, and what role are they currently playing?
Well, we do have Holland and Knight, as you're aware, that is, constantly keeping their eye open for various opportunities. They provide the CEO with access to, players in Tallahassee and in Washington. So, they could, I think, do a little bit more, and we've discussed that with them to varying strategies and approaches. But I think to continue to, I think more so the local elected delegation than the national delegation, to just kind of, again, state, where we are and where we are in terms of state of good repair and what our ultimate vision is, which is to ultimately get back to, certainly pre-COVID levels of service, if not better than that.
I think we just, within the last week or so, discussed with the three top candidates for the next contract, Holland and Knight, Schumacher, and Grant Robinson, all three of them. We stressed, everybody's got different characters or qualities and characteristics, and I tried to harp significantly on the local, whereas they're very well represented. All three of them are very well represented statewide as well as feds. And I think Mr. Drainville's in D.C. as we speak, or if either he's on his way to D.C. To meet with the FTA people to see what he got, how can you help us? What do we need to do to be better positioned for federal grants going forward? Because keep in mind, we can leverage our local dollars to the feds and to the state 2 to 1, 3 to 1 even sometimes. So if we had the better funding locally with the better local support, we can turn the 50 million or 30 million increased ad valorem into 100 or 150 potentially, with the focus on the rolling stock and the heavy maintenance facility. If we could get those monies earmarked and put it in the bank and hang on to it, we can better plan going forward with the capital. So the 1 year window that we're looking at of 74 million, we really need to get this done. We really got to figure out the way to make it happen. So it's very, very important that we support the charter review, the charter changes going forward so that we can, avert 2028 disaster, because, that's when it's going to hit us really hard. So I really look forward to the continued support on this. Locally, it's going to be the charter review. State and federal, it's going to be the leverage of those dollars in the future into making it all available and making it happen for everybody at HART. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Williams, I know you feel like you're standing in the lion's den, so I apologize. You did a fantastic job. And Ms. Kirk and the entire staff in finance. I know what it takes to put this kind of a budget together. They're just like pushing a rock up a hill sometimes. And I know that these numbers they're big and they're daunting, and I know what it takes to put this together, so I appreciate your efforts and so forth. And then you get to stand there and tell us what they all are, but then you get to listen to us ask what makes them up. So I appreciate the effort, and I applaud it. And with that, I seek approval for to move this item forward to the full board for consideration on the June 2nd meeting. Do we have a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any comment, Mr. King? Any discussion? Mr. King, I see your hand up. You're muted. Appearing to be no comment. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. King. Your hand's up. Is there anything you want to say?
No, sorry.
Okay, no worries. Okay, this item is, thank you, everyone. Appreciate that. I would take these, and you ever have a copy of this? You have a copy? Can we get copies for these guys, for the other members of the committee, so just in case anything comes up at the board meeting, that we're prepared to support anything that needs to be done. Motion, let's move on to section 5. We will. We have a presentation on the basis transit infrastructure update. Mr. McCarthy, you're please introduce the presenter.
Thank you, Chair. Staff committed to share regular updates on the basic transit infrastructure program to the committee and the board. The last update was given in January. Today, Mr. Dwayne Brown, HART Project Manager, will give an overview of the bus stop inventory and the current and planned projects. Mr. Brown, you're recognized to present.
Good morning, sir. Welcome.
Good morning, Chair Sisler, committee members, Mr. McCarthy. I'm Dwayne Brown, Project Manager with the HART PMO, as well as the BTI Program Manager, or Basic Transit Infrastructure Program Manager. I'm here this morning to provide you an update on the BTI program regarding bus stops and shelters. This slide shows the number of stops in our systems, how many have shelters, and where they all are. Just a reminder, the number of bus stops in this chart was acquired through a bus stop inventory conducted in 2022. As of our last bus stop inventory, we accounted for 2,256 bus stops, of which there were 608 shelters. On this chart is a breakdown of the total SHRM per district for BOCC. The stop backlog, or number of stops that require stop improvement, is about 331. Since our last update, there have been 16 bus stops that have been improved by HART or by a developer on HART's behalf. Bus stops with shelters that are past their useful life are currently at 521, and we have placed 92 shelters, of which 5 were added to our total, and now it's 613. The next two lines are the investment made over the past 6 years. Since our last meeting, our total investment has increased by $627,750. As of the presentation, as of this presentation was submitted, the highlighted is the last lines are the shelters that are currently in inventory. The $4,768,856 that the figure for total does not represent the shelters that have not been installed. So the 55 shelters that have not been installed are not included in this number. Here are the current projects that we have that are ongoing under construction. All these projects are to upgrade the current bus stops and address ADA issues. The first we have is Memorial at George Highway, and it's a District 1 project. This location will receive a shelter once it's completed. This project was actually completed on Friday, and we're just waiting for the concrete to cure in order for us to put the shelter on there. But that project is actually completed already. Hillsborough at 43rd Street. This is a project we're doing in conjunction with the school board. They gave us an easement for this project, and we are in the last phases to get that one out. We're just waiting for a signature from the CEO to start construction on this project. We have, so Main Street at Rome and Main Street at Willow is in District 3. We were receiving 4 total shelters at these 2 intersections once this is complete. And this one is also the same company that completed the project at Memorial Highway is doing this project, so they're moving to this next project once I think like next week they'll be ready to start on that project. We have the 2 stops that at Davis Road. This is in District 2. These have ADA improvements, and they will not be receiving shelters due to lack of right-of-way, and we couldn't get an easement from the landowner in order to put the shelters there. The 14th Avenue corridor, that's down in Ruskin in District 4. We have 5 bus stops there that we're doing improvements on, but at this time only one of them is going to be receiving shelter at this time. Here's a list of the current projects that we have that are currently in design. The 22nd Street at Bush Boulevard. This bus stop is in District 3, and it will be receiving a shelter once it's completed. Main Street at North Boulevard, that is downtown, that is right near Blake High School. It's going to be receiving a shelter once it is complete. Rolette Park at Waters Avenue, this project is going to be getting a bus bay, and once it is complete, we'll have a shelter at that location as well. Okay, just moving on there. So we have another project that's in design. It's at 131st Avenue at 15th Street. There are 3 stops that are there, and all 3 are going to be receiving shelters once they are completed for construction. That concludes my presentation, barring any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I do. I've heard Mr. Brown's presentation. It's my second time listening to it. I just want to call out that when we had our ADA committee meeting, you were very, consistent in making sure that those buses that caused a problem for disability were taken care of right away. So I don't know that we find this, we don't say that in this presentation, but there is a prior order of how buses are being changed or added, or including shelter. So I just want to thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I had one question, if I may. Do we ever get resistance from the local governing boards for the zoning, any zoning issues?
We don't get any resistance from any local governing boards about issues about getting bus stops in. They generally work with us pretty well.
Okay, just landowners who are really resistant to giving easements and so forth for ADA?
Yeah. Landowners and developers.
Okay.
Sometimes
Developers
we have there is a ton of development that goes on around Hillsborough County, as we all know, is being built, and developers don't always. They kind of skirt the system and try to get around different things, and sometimes they want to leave out bus stops, and so transit. They want to leave out transit in general, and so. The board, if we could get you guys' help to help when probably we have issues like that come around, we could probably use you guys in helping us get those issues solved.
Could we do that? I wonder at what point of the process we need to get involved with that. In the original land development, what if the BOCC or the city could help us?
So generally speaking, when a development, when they're in the process of doing a development, once it meets certain thresholds, like say the size of the development or what they're doing or whatever, it hits a point and it says, hey, you need to talk to these people, and HART is one of the people that they need to talk to. And based upon the size of it, we have certain triggers. So if it's large enough, they will owe us like a bus stop, or they will owe us a shelter, or they will owe us if it's large enough, they will owe us like a transit facility if it's very large. And that happens. So as you know, developments can go on for years.
Yeah.
They can say, hey, once they could be 5 years down the line, and then they've gone through all these different triggers and they've gotten to their 60, 90% development on it. And then that's when they want to come into HART and say, hey, what do you guys need? And then they owe us something big, and they're like, well, my plan doesn't include that into it. And so that's when we have the issues.
I know with Temple Terrace, I've tried to be proactive with Amazon and the VA and so forth, but even dealing with them had its issues and problems. So I wonder if there's a way that, and I don't know who would be responsible for that, and I know that's not this committee's job, but to rattle the cage at a certain point in time is, when does HART need to be accommodated also for bus stops and so forth? If you got any ideas on when we should do that, we could rattle the board's cage to become more aggressive with that, so it makes your life a lot easier on the back end.
Absolutely.
My goal. Figure that out. Bring it back to us and let us know.
Okay.
I'll bring it up to the board. I don't care.
Yes, sir.
What are they gonna do? Fire me? Okay. Cool. Thank you very much. Good
I
presentation.
have one more point.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. This is your life.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Brown, I think as you've said or indicated, that we need to get involved very early on when the subdivisions are pulling their permits and so forth. And so from my standpoint, that's where we should have some type of identity or log, and it triggers us to do so at that time, versus once they start building, it's difficult to go back and ask for something because, they can always owe us, so to speak, and try to make up in some other area, but that's not our goal. We're gonna grow 900 homes. We need to make sure we have transportation there, and then there'll also be a benefit from a business standpoint. So whatever you guys have that you need for us to care for and to talk to developers up front, I'd be more than happy to provide my services and meet.
Thank you very much.
Scream and holler. Yes, sir. Mr. Hartfield.
I think in my estimation, thank you first, Mr. Brown, for the presentation. I think in my estimation, that's a county commissioner issue. And I think we have, 3 or 4 commissioners that sit on the board. So if developers are not keeping in mind the need for whatever's mandated as it relates to a traffic or bus stop, then I think that should come in the form of financial concessions that are directed back to HART. so that we can make those provisions, plus an added cost.
Well, to your point, the BOCC members, they got a lot of plates going in the air. They may not realize that we got a hard issue, so we can help remind them.
Yeah, definitely.
If nothing else.
So my point, though, Mr. Brown, is you may not know this, so I'm asking. There's nearly $1 billion coming down in CDBG funds for disaster recovery. Can any of those funds be used for bus stops or transit infrastructure?
I would love for those funds to be used for bus stop and infrastructure, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure how those funds get broken down and how they divvy them out as far as like I know that in the county and in the city they have impact fees and things like that where they give us we get funding from impact fees to do certain things in certain districts. So I'm not quite sure how much of that comes to us.
Well, we're asking to mess with someone else's kitchen. He's going to get nervous here in a minute. and I'm sensitive to that. So, cool. Well, good presentation. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Mr. King, anybody?
If we could just bring this presentation to the board, there are always questions about the progress
Sure.
that's being made, and I think this is significant.
Stay too long. Now you got to go to the board.
Thank you.
Good point.
No
Good
questions on my end. I concur with everything that we've discussed so far with respect to placement of infrastructure to support mass transit as developments are brought to fruition. So I'm in line with that.
Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, procurement monitoring. Mr. McCarthy, you are recognized to share updates.
Thank you, Chair. So there was one sole source procurement has been added to the sole source report for FY25. Westmatic Corporation for repairs to a bus wash in the amount of $18,983. The system sustained damages to be repaired with the next preventative maintenance visit. The parts are manufactured by Westmatic, and only Westmatic is authorized to provide the service. Fiscal year-to-date sole source procurements total $879,911. Task orders for FY25. 2 BTI construction task orders were issued since the April committee. A task order was issued to Flores Construction Company for the construction of a bus stop, shelter, and landing pads at Memorial Highway at the intersection with George Road. A second task order was issued to American Construction Services Incorporated of Tampa to reseal and restripe Hidden River Park and Ride. $1,659,292.31 in task orders have been issued, with $3,340,707.69 remaining on the board awarded not to exceed of $5 million. Only one A&E Design Services task order was issued to Burns and McDonald Engineering Company Incorporated to design a bus stop, shelter, and landing pad at 131st Avenue and 15th Street. One general consultant services task order was issued since the April committee. A task order was issued to WSP USA Incorporated to provide strategic planning, grant strategy development, financial planning and partnerships, partner coordination, corridor development, and legislative strategy development, public engagement, and messaging. Notice of solicitations. One solicitation is being reported this month. A solicitation for Cisco adapters for core switches to replace the current equipment that is at end of useful life. And this concludes my report, Mr. Chair.
Any questions or comments by the committee members?
Seems like I'm talking quite a bit today. So a question about washing vehicles. Are we using a contractor to wash the vans? There was something you mentioned early on.
The equipment, the machines busted.
Is that going to be a part of the heavy maintenance building in the future?
The bus washer.
Well, no. When the full-scale building is built, it will go away. It will be rebuilt as part of the new project, but that's several years down the road.
Okay, thank you. I think it's important for us to understand as we spend money, this is what we're going to reduce, as you know, and it'd be a good return on investment.
Yeah, and it's a great point that you bring up, and one that we've discussed internally, is that, you know, unfortunately, the heavy maintenance facility is gonna be built anytime in the immediate future, and we still have to conduct business every day in the meantime. So there are gonna be expenditures that we incur that, you know, theoretically will go away when the new facility comes on, but that's just a critical part of our business.
Thank you.
Cool. Information items in section 7, you'll find the HART performance reports for the second quarter 2025 and the fiscal and the financial update ending March 31st, 2025. Staff is available to answer any questions about those reports. That appear to be none. This concludes the regular business for the meeting. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody, and everybody remote. Thank you for your time. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to mention that on behalf of HART, I was able to view and tour the Traffic Management Center as a member of the TPO board extended from HART, and all of the comments as it relates to the work that they do at the Traffic Management Center was positive every time that HART was spoken of. So I was pleased to hear that in terms of partnership. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Anything else? Thanks, guys. Have a great day.